got involved, that kind of stuff.
You want to what's that?
All right. So just when you talk, just look toward me. First of all, when did you get involved in ham radio?
I started in ham radio in the mid-'70s. I got in basically because the VHF technology of the day was an early cell phone capability, be able to communicate, and the other thing was that I used 6 meters a lot in radio-controlled airplanes.
Okay. So that was your first introduction to the hobby?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
And I came in as a tech with code, and at the time the tech test was the same as the general test, and but if you took the code at 5 words a minute, then you were only a tech. And I've never had enough time to practice code to get very good.
So what does that evolve into now? What's your favorite part of the hobby now?
Right now I am involved in all the HF bands, and I usually am just a weekend warrior on those, but at the same time I'm trying to get into the satellite communications, and I find that to be extremely challenging. The equipment is sophisticated. You can do it simple, but to do it right, it really gets sophisticated. And I've had some success, and I've had a lot of failures.
So what I hear from a lot of people is there is something, wait, adjust this up a little bit. There is something for everybody in ham radio.
Absolutely, I tell people that all the time. As we do courses here and as we do the testing, what I try to explain to them is that merely having a license to transmit, you still don't know how to run a radio. And so the usefulness of the club here is to teach you how to get your first radio, what to do with it, teach you all of the avenues that are out there to find your particular interest. And the result of that is that I think people come into this with a little elevated kind of understanding that a license isn't, while it's a valuable thing, it's not a very expansive thing, because we don't really teach you how to do anything in the courses. We just teach you how to pass the test.
Yeah. So personally right now, what's your favorite part of the hobby?
I like working with the club.
Yeah.
I'm the treasurer of the club, and I like working with the people, getting the club to the caliber that we see today. I've been working with it. I was a member of the VHF club until they merged with Jefferson Amateur Radio, and when that happened, I kind of, in Katrina time, they just needed a lot of help, and then I just kind of jumped on board and said, you know, this is a worthwhile endeavor. It's worthy of me donating my time to, and here we are 10 years later, and it looks great. It's just more than I expected it to be.
Yeah. If you say and also you see a lot of different ages in here. You see everything from kids to, I know there was a guy 96 years old here at the last club meeting.
That's
so
correct.
There's really no age barriers. There's no,
Absolutely not. We had a family come in for testing one Saturday morning. They had driven in from near Alexandria, and 2 parents, 2 children. The younger one was 7 years old, and they all walked away with their licenses. So there's no age limit, and there's really no limit as far as handicaps, because we can customize tests for people, even if they can't see well or if they can't hear well, and it's a great sport hobby for people who maybe they're stay-at-homes or something like that.
So change it. Why are events like Field Day important in the grand scheme of things?
Well, in my opinion, I mean, I know a lot of people use this as their calibrating tool to how well they communicate and they keep score and everything else. My attitude is that what this does is just like you clean your house really well before a big party, Well, we clean our station, we make sure everything's working, and we make sure it all shows up on the due date of field day. And so it really keeps your state of operating ability high. I think that's the best part.
So do you think it's important for ARL to sponsor these kind of events?
Oh, absolutely. I think there ought to be more of them. Yeah, there's several during the year, and as I'm a weekend warrior, I participate in a lot of the contests as a respondent rather than a scorekeeper or someone who wants to keep track. But I like to respond to the people that are trying to work different states from their home state, and frequently I get the response of, "Wow, you're my first Louisiana contact."
That's good. That's good. So if you had to give a little elevator pitch to a public official who doesn't know anything about ham radio, what would you tell them? What's the value of ham radio?
I think that the maximum value of ham radio is in its aspect of service to the community. People ask me all the time, what do you guys talk about on the radio all the time? And I said, well, it's mostly just technical stuff, people sharing ideas, people just jawboning, in their efforts. I said, but what they're really doing, although, they're not going to admit this, they're not going to say it out loud, what they're really doing is they're practicing for an emergency. They're keeping their station up, they're proving their ability to communicate, because when they're needed, that's when they really kick into gear.
If you had to go, like if we had another disaster, would you feel confident that you could get out there and communicate?
Absolutely, sure. I have a Go kit, which includes a radio and several antennas, power supplies. I have a small generator. I have a solar panel that charges a battery. I think I could be up and running relatively quickly, maybe an hour or two, at whatever location I chose.
So now people think, oh, I got my cell phone, I can communicate all around the world on my cell phone, I can get on the internet and type. But yeah, what happens when that system goes down? I don't think people grasp that. Hey, we're dead in the water, kind of thing. What would you tell those people that tell you, hey, I got my cell phone, I don't need anything?
They're naive. These people haven't probably been through the types of disasters that New Orleans sees on occasion, and I try to educate them to the standpoint that their cell phones can be turned off by a storm, by a power outage, by the government, with just the flip of a switch or the bolt of a lightning, whatever, and their cell phone is worthless because it's not point to point. It's actually relies on these cell towers to work, and if there's no power, if there's no cell tower, if there's no government willingness to allow them to work, your cell phone is worthless, unless you just use it as a calculator. And then when the battery runs down, you don't even have that. So.
Yeah, that's a good one. And I think people see the value of all these systems. Just to bring an example, recently when they were trying to get those escaped convicts, the police people couldn't talk to each other, all these agencies come in.
That's right.
What would be the value of ham radio and something like that?
Well, it doesn't quit. Especially in short range, the type of instance that you talk about, equipping ham radio operators or even professionals with some sort of a handheld radio that has a radius of, I don't know, say 2 to 5 miles is a valuable thing, and it can keep a lot of people in touch. And I explained to everybody that amateur radio is not like a cell phone. It's not person to person. It's actually able to do person to group. So you can keep a lot of people informed as to what's going on, as well as target an individual with a radio and say, I want you to do something specific. Everybody else is knowing what the overall objective and specific tasks are that it enables.
Let's see. You think of anything else?
Let's see. It's not hard to get a ham license. A lot of people say, oh man, all of this technical stuff, wow, I'll never learn all of that. And it's like, the ham license is very simple. Exhibit 1, the 7-year-old that comes in and gets the ham license. The first ham license is just learning the rules. You have to know a little bit about Ohm's law. That's really not tough for somebody who knows any sort of arithmetic. And so from that standpoint, getting your first ham license gets you involved with the people who can show you what the possibilities are. So I think it's not a large mountain to climb. I personally right now don't even recommend that people buy a book. A lot of people learned out of a book, but nowadays the resources on the web, you know, you call up ham license or ham or whatever, put it in Google, and they lead you to enough of sites that you don't even really need a book to do it.
Yeah, that's a good point. What would you say to some maybe that's like ham radio is expensive? I know it can get expensive, but it doesn't have to be, I guess.
Wow. I mean, your first ham license allows you to transmit with what's called very high frequencies, VHF, and the new handhelds that are coming in from the other side of the world are less than $100. So I think that's a reasonable point. I mean, that could be a birthday present or a graduation present or something like that, and I think most people would have that type of resource potential.
Yeah. So describe the typical ham.
Oh my goodness, I don't know that there is one. Really, I mean, we go from spectrum to spectrum. I don't think it aligns with intelligence. I don't think it aligns with technical ability. I don't think it aligns with any sort of a class in society. I think that you'll find hams in every walk of life, every situation in life. Our club, what our club seems to be leaning toward is that the most active members are those that don't have to work full time in a job. And even though I'm treasurer, I'm still working full time. I try to do as much as I can, but our most active members are those that are retired. But I don't see the hobby going that direction. I see a lot of younger people coming in when they realize that every radio is attached to a computer nowadays, and that we do a lot of things that are digital, and in an appeal to those that seek to be energy efficient. A lot of these digital modes, they can talk around the world with the power of a light bulb off of a Christmas tree, and it's really a phenomenal thing. The technology is not static. It continues to improve. As a matter of fact, a lot of the improvements that we see in everyday life were invented by hams. So.
Yeah. And one little pitch for the Jefferson Club. It seems like things are growing around here, and it's really not a specialized club. It's like, not a DX club, not a VHF club. It seems to have something for everyone.
And that's true. And I think we target that in particular. We've got a repeater committee that takes care of the VHF side of the club. Our president comes in with his satchel of adapter cords and probably can program any handheld known to man, and and put all the repeaters and digital information in there, which you could of course key in yourself, but we can do it in a lightning flash, and I think that's very useful for the beginners, because programming your radio, especially the less expensive radios, has gotten to be a lot harder. So, and then as you step up through the avocation, we've got the people aboard who can explain to you the advantages of the HF frequencies as well as the equipment required to do it. And that equipment is a little more expensive, but my first radio I bought used, and it worked fine until lightning hit it, and, and then I used that as an excuse to buy a new one. So. So there's a lot of used equipment out there that's perfectly fine and just wonderful for people to get started with.
I can't think of anything else.
Well, that's good. Okay. All right.
Awesome.